What's up, y'all? It's Dope back again with another video, man. I know it's been a couple of months since I last picked up the camera, you know, some stuff behind the scenes, like getting all my channels together and focus on coming back and doing what I gotta do. You know, I'm finna really come back with these videos 2021. I'm gonna let y'all know one thing you can be doing that can cost you your life. First of all, I wanna say I appreciate my nigga Von 2 Cut for the shout out, bro. You feel me? I gained a couple hundred subscribers from Von 2 Cut shout out in his live stream. Hey, make sure y'all stay tuned. I got plenty of content coming out helping y'all, bro. The other day I was sitting in my room, a thought had ran through my head. I recently went through this big journey of learning. I went through this big phase in life recently where I learned a whole lot of lessons about myself and about the world. A couple of days ago, I was sitting down, I was asking myself, what was the biggest lesson overall that I had took from this phase of my life? The biggest lesson I learned in this phase of my life is to not be an extremist. When I thought this, I immediately ran in the house and wrote down all my thoughts so I'd be able to explain to y'all in detail what I was thinking at the time and the lesson I learned, and I feel like the universe sent me a message to write that down so I'd be able to share it with y'all and hopefully help y'all. I'm finna sit down and read y'all everything I learned and I was thinking at the time that I wrote down, because I know it's gonna help somebody. So y'all, man, y'all stay tuned. Alright, y'all, so I got my binder right here, all the stuff I had wrote down. The biggest thing I learned since my transformation since June 2019, the overall biggest lesson I learned from this transformation was don't be an extremist. Being too much into something is bad, and being too against something can be just as bad. From doing YouTube in 2019, I was growing, but it became the one and only thing that was my priority. Nothing is wrong with prioritizing YouTube, it's the way I was doing it. Being too for it made me start caring about others like my family, health, and money. I was too caught up into seeing numbers grow on YouTube rather than a bank account. I was too caught up in the validation that came with it. So I became an extremist for it. I started to realize how I had nobody to talk to. I was not open to talking to any people in my city. I know I was trying to prove something, but not everybody was against me, but I did not care. I wanted nothing to do with them. One day I realized that I had nobody reaching out to me. Now that I think about it, people were trying to reach out to me who hadn't even done anything to me, but I wouldn't talk to them just because they stayed in my city. When people seen I wasn't open to it, I eventually had nobody to talk to. And when I tried to reach out to them, they seemed kind of distant. I didn't know why at the time. And then I started seeking validation from people. I became too available when I didn't used to be available at all. Two extreme sides of the spectrum. I went from putting YouTube first, not talking to people, to putting people first, not entertaining YouTube. Both are just as bad as the other, but I didn't realize it at the time. I sit back and look at the whole situation I went through. I went from not entertaining girls to being needy and thirsty, DMing hundreds of them, seeking validation. I went from following only people who inspired me, like YouTubers and influencers, which is nothing wrong with that, but then I started randomly following people I didn't know, people who offer no value to my eyes. I went from following under 200 people to over 1,000 random people on social media. It's nothing wrong with that in itself. This happened because I was too against it at first, as if I looked down on people or seen them as less of people because I was used to following only quote-unquote famous people. I can apply this lesson to all the other periods of my life I went through during this phase. Like when I was editing for YouTubers, I was doing nothing else. When I was making intros for people, after a couple months, I got tired of it because it was the only thing I was doing. I became only focused on girls. I had nothing else going on. I became low value. I became too much into instant gratification, which is also bad for having self-control over lust and impulse. I had no self-control. I became reliant on what others thought of me, so my self-confidence became low. I started to be on social media too much, looking at people's lives, which made me feel bad about mine. I would compare myself to them. It is bad being extremely into people and things, putting them before you, God, and your goals. I also learned not to be too against people and things and put them down, because that's just as bad. Once you're up a level and you look down on people, the universe will humble you, and there may come a period where you need the people who you did wrong. Don't be too against people, because you can miss out on helpful advice from genuine people and new ideas and constructive criticism. Don't be too against meeting new people, because you could eventually find yourself awkward and unattractive with no social skills and people not wanting to be around you. Make sure you have balance in life. Don't cut everything and everybody off. Don't step on them to prioritize other people, things, and goals. Be mindful of others, and don't be an extremist, going out of the way to show how much you're willing to do for something or someone, or being desperate, or going out of your way to show how much you are against something, aka putting it down. Being too distant and judgmental. Both of these traits could result in you getting a slap in the face from the universe. Hey man, everybody watching this right now, this is the biggest lesson I learned since June 2019, when my life started to turn around around. If you follow my main account, I recently posted a video explaining how everything I went through and the reason I had to start uploading on YouTube. It's on my main channel, I Am Dope. When I was going crazy on YouTube 2 years ago, I was at a point, everybody in my city, I went open to talking to none of them. Because I feel like all of them was against me. I ain't want nothing to do with them. I feel like, man, I don't want nothing to do with nobody in this city, man. You feel me? I don't really mess with them like that. They ain't know nothing. That's being an extremist. A lot of y'all might think, oh man, he just cutting people off who he don't need in his life or who ain't no value to your life. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I went too extreme to the point where I started to actually hate people who live in my city. I started to literally not talk to people who literally did nothing to me. There's no telling who here that actually own what I'm on. But if I'm against everybody in my city, I would never know that. Don't be too thirsty or needy. Don't be seeking validation. But also, y'all gotta understand, don't be at the other end of the spectrum where you putting people down, stepping on people, or where you looking down on people, because the universe will humble you, bro. I didn't want nothing to do with people in my city because I felt like I was above them, and I got humbled. Later that year, I got humbled. Everything that I was gaining can be taken away like this, and I ain't have nobody to talk to. How I learned this lesson was after that, all them people I wouldn't talk to no more. Later that year in 2019, them became the very people I kept hitting up. I would go out and try to get them to like me. I would seek validation from them. Those are two extremes. Don't be on either side of the spectrum. For example, all my dudes watching, if you're practicing semen retention, you may be a couple weeks or a couple months into a streak. That's cool and all that you got that self-discipline. But what I want to warn y'all not to do is look down on people who may not be practicing semen retention, who may not have the discipline to do what you're doing. Don't look down on them. Don't go around people acting like you on this level and they down here just because you retaining your seed and they worry about smashing girls. One thing about it is that the universe will humble you. Don't do that. Do not put people down just because you got the discipline. If anything, you need to lift them up. Don't go around people acting like you better than them just because you got all the energy and you trying to use it to look like you more masculine or look like you more of a man than them just because you came across this information earlier in your life than they did. So don't put other people down, man. And this goes to any part of your life, man. Don't be on the extreme. Don't be an extremist. If you on your purpose, don't be on your purpose too much. You gotta have a balance. You gotta have other goals and hobbies outside your purpose, or else you're gonna get burnt out. I'm pretty sure y'all heard of burnout before. It's real. I want to let y'all know, don't be an extremist, man. Make sure you be balanced. The reason why a lot of y'all relapse on semen retention is because you too against it. Once you start retaining, you become too against it to the point where you literally fighting urges. See, me personally, ain't no urges to fight because it's not a part of who I am no more. So I don't have to fight. But when you put up resistance towards something, it naturally put resistance back. One thing I don't want y'all to do, don't ever say the word never. Don't say you ain't gonna never do something. For example, don't say I ain't gonna never beat my meat no more, because that word never is heavy and it hold a lot of weight. That's a big weight on your shoulder. Like, for example, me personally, I haven't ever smoked or drunk in my life. But one thing I made sure I don't do, I don't tell people that, hey, I ain't gonna never smoke, I ain't gonna never drink. Because what happened is that never word, it becomes heavy. You have to work extra hard and put up extra resistance to try to make sure you hold up that never. The urges start getting stronger and stronger. Then you start actually fighting it and putting up resistance towards it. But when you put up resistance and fighting, that thing you try not to do is gonna naturally resist back to the point where you gonna eventually break. You put that hard thing on your shoulder. You put that. What you should say instead is that I'm gonna make sure I keep myself in check. I'm gonna make sure I'm always on top of my self-discipline and make sure I won't do that no more, because that's not a part of who I am. Don't say never, because that's a big toll on you. And next thing you know, you don't relapse. Next thing you know, you became a victim of peer pressure. You don't smoke, you don't drunk. I don't say the word never because it's like a big resistance you put on yourself. Don't do that. That's being too much of an extremist. That means you becoming too against it. You ever heard the quote of somebody saying you become what you hate or something like that? Don't do that. Don't hate something. Just because you not agreeing with it, don't hate it, because you will become that. Next thing you know, you'll start indulging in it. So make sure you're not being on the extreme spectrum where you seeking validation or where you too into something or where you addicted to something. But make sure you're not on the other extreme or the end of the spectrum to where you too against it, putting it down, or where you putting down people who do that you don't agree with. I hope y'all learned something from this video. I got plenty more videos coming soon, man. This is something that came on my mind a couple of days ago and I wanted to get it off. If you're watching, man, make sure you go subscribe to my vlog channel and my main channel, man. I got content coming all week. Once again, I appreciate Von 2 Cut for that shout out on your live stream, man. Hey, man, y'all stay tuned, bro.